Well, since I had so much fun this morning telling you a lot of stuff about Do.Glimpse AI, I feel a bit more confident now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you about some of the initiatives that we're working on as a call for action, as a call to action to help me out. And since that first interaction, I've already upgraded my situation. I'm not using Google anymore. Now I'm using this free resource, which is pretty cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some time to explain to you one of the artificial intelligence initiatives we're working on, which is EndWork.ai. And I need your help, and I want to reason with you what is ultimately going to happen and what I think we can all do about it together, if you will allow me that option. So I just like doing these things back and forth. This is pretty cool. So thank you for entertaining me. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at EndWork AI. So it's EndWork.ai. And these AI domain names, they're so funny because they're domains of thought, but they're also web domains. And when you see all the web domains I've purchased, the AI domains, you're going to imagine yourself, man, was no one else thinking of these domains? Because I've got a lot of really good ones, and we're going to be putting a lot of these in this initiative together. So I'm going to scope these videos out. Hopefully they'll be 40 minutes long, plus or minus. That in totality, you will understand the complete vision I have across all of the domains and how they will ultimately, I think, help humanity. Because no one else is. Because the last video I did, or the first video, was, I hope, the only video that induces some sense of fear and sorrow. And that video I resisted putting out. And I think because I ate the frog, so to say, now I feel more confident that I got to the punchline. I felt like I was holding on to the bad news for the end. Now, since I did the bad news up front, maybe we can take this next couple of videos together to look at the good news about how we can augment and help humanity. And you'll see. So let's get started. So this is EndWork.ai. So let me give you a little bit of a backstory about how we got here. So my background is I owned a software development company that I started in 2019. And we built, like a lot of other software development companies, we built WordPress websites. And we were very good at that. We were on the more premium end of that. We would build websites between $15,000 to $50,000. And we were able to generate, I think, at the peak of our business, about close to $1 million, and then ultimately over $1 million a year in revenue. My capacity was, as the co-founder, my job was the sales person, strategy and user experience, strategy, user experience design, and consulting. And during that time, I had the blessing, the privilege to speak with countless business owners. And the reason that we were so good at what we did was because whenever we built websites, really the last thing we talked about was your website. Because the theory goes, the more we know about you and what you're trying to do, the better we can fit the business to your business needs. Because, imagine someone would come with all these ideas. We want to do this and we want to do that. And we would sort of back up and say, well, tell me about your customers. Tell me about your users. Tell me about your sales patterns. Tell me about your market. Tell me about, your competitors. Because we're really good at what we do. Myself in particular, my background being as diverse as it is, my goal was to custom fit a website, a tool, a handmade tool for your business. So when I speak about these things, my background is in human-computer interaction design, which becomes very relevant. So I was an entrepreneur and I owned a company. Now, where this AI stuff and why we're having this conversation, where this came from, is it was May of last year, 2024. We had reached the pinnacle of entrepreneurial success, I believed. We put together a team of 20 employees, great sales, great strategic partners, good friends, good colleagues. And as a business owner, the name of the game is optimize. Optimize for ease, optimize for profit, optimize for delivery and throughput. And so one of the ways to optimize for throughput is to make your company more efficient, right? So say I have 20 employees, and if they've got training manuals, if they understand their jobs or roles, then the delivery of what I'm going to do, the company's delivery is going to be much better. So between April and May of last year, I buckled down, because it's not easy managing 20 people. I'm not a very good manager. I'm more of a idea guy, but I had tasked to try to optimize our business by optimizing our throughput. You could look at, the theory of constraints. It's traditional business thought. How I was trying to identify the biggest constraint. Little did I know it was me, and the lack of training. So to remediate that, I was like, well, let me understand every single role of every single employee, and what is it that they do, input, output. So I took every one of my employees' roles, all of our customers, and I effectively created a business process map that helped me understand what is it that everyone does. Not what is your job description, but if a customer has a widget that they need, what is it that you actually do? Not your job title. What is it that you input, you gather as an input, and what is it you deliver as an output? And what is it that you think and provide and produce? What value do you create? And so it was in May of last year that this was, I think it was May 13th, when ChatGPT released their latest model. And it was at that moment that I saw that if all of my employees, say if I have an employee that has this input, output, this input, output, and this employee has this input, output, this input, output, and this is another employee, I saw that if you really boil down everyone's role into maybe a series of 10 to 20 decisions that they make, depending upon things they get, what I saw was, why do I need these employees? And then between May and June and July and August, existential breakdown, right? Because then I was confronted with my biggest fear, which was because I at that point, being an entrepreneur, knowing how people interact with interfaces, knowing economic incentive and competitive market forces, they took me out to one answer, which is the leanest business will survive. The leanest business is the business that has no employees. And so I said, man, this is going to be hard. This is going to be hard to eventually lay off 20 people, because I am going to have to lay them off if I want to keep my business. So I did the next best thing, and I sold my company and I left. And I've healed, and I healed from that, because that was crazy, to see it. I saw it. I saw what was coming. This pen is not working. We're going to have to switch this bad boy up. So the byproduct of selling my company, which had my name in it, which was my identity. So I was a business owner. I would qualify myself, go into a room. I'm Drew. I own a business. My qualification is an easy way for me to identify where I am, and to some extent it credentials me, creates positionality in a circumstance, lets you know a little bit about what I do and how I think about the world. The cultural norm is we go into rooms and we ask people, what do you do for a living? So there's an irony there. But the byproduct of selling my company and taking the time to rest and recoup was that I didn't realize that I was actually getting rid of my identity at the same time. Though I am quite positive that effectively that, I no longer became a business owner. I boiled myself down to my most essential identity: father, husband, um, you know, martial artist. Like these things became my identity again. My identity was not my utility. My identity was maybe my purpose. So when I ended it all, I also lost my identity, which is this is a very powerful this is a powerful anchor. This is what this is what happens when you retire after 50 years of service and you sort of go into fishing. And then when you're done fishing, you're like, man, I miss the stress. I miss the colleagues. So if I experienced this, you're going to experience this. And so when you have an identity crisis, man, that just hits you. I mean, your identity, that is you. That's how people know you. Now, there are people that don't have their identities based off of their profession. They have their identities based off of, say, an inability to achieve things. There are those that don't have jobs. And, there are those who go to college, they'll put the emblems on the back of their car. Or if you've served in the military, you'll wear their hat. Or you like a band, you'll wear their T-shirt. Or you go to a company and they'll give you the mouse pad and the branded notebook with the logo on it, right? So that was my identity that I lost. So then it was about, and this is a little bit of a backstory. We'll get to the AI, and I'm prefacing this because you're going to go through this. And it'll probably be different than me, but I want you to know that there's a path here. I want you to feel alone before I get to the shocking news, because you might see me as the enemy. I come in peace. I promise. So, then, what happened next? Well, I put out a video. It didn't get very popular. Man screams at cloud, not popular. That I basically said I had fear for my mom, because I know that based off of my entrepreneurial spirit, the acquisition of money is not a difficult activity. But for people like my mom, or your mom, all of our moms, all of our dads, people that are maybe a bit older, we laughed when the coal miners lost their jobs. We say things like they should go become a software engineer. They should learn a trade. We've got skills in trades organizations out there. That's going to change. But it eventually turned into a sort of an existential fear for my mom and for every mom out there. And then it made me think about this is a little bit of a left turn, but then right now, the amount of silence. I mean, people are using soft words like new economic models, post-labor economics. Everyone sort of sees what's coming. Or, I mean, a lot of the niche nerds see what's coming. A lot of you you've lost your jobs, you didn't see it coming. Maybe you saw it coming because your job got really easy and you were already using AI in the first place. I had resolved that there was a cost to the silence here. And so I had another domain name that we'll look at in a little bit, but this is about this time, November, December, is when I eventually said, okay, I want to do something about this. And then it was 7 months of existential terror, realizing this is not easy to talk about because I'm sort of on the inside, telling you facts. about what's going to happen, and then a choice. And so this is when a little star here to indicate stuff's about to get cray cray. Okay, so I don't know how the three body problem thing works. I've seen there's a book about it, whatever it is. I'm going to tell you my impression about whatever's happening. Okay, so in the future, with AI, in the future, I sort of look at it as like there's a domain of things that could happen. There's possibilities, right? So there's what's possible. So we know, I know that because of business process theory, that you deconstruct people's jobs into finite tasks, that I know that we all interact on computers, and I know that there's a premise of information technology. We'll talk about that in a second. So I know a lot of different disparate things. So I know that AI-based cognitive train of thought can replace my job, can replace highly functional decision tree type jobs. Okay? So that's one. This exists. The possibility of it happening exists. Well, then I know that there's a question of will and force. I know that in the future, that market forces, competitive market forces, scarcity, competition, capitalism, other isms, consumerism, marketing and advertising, even down to seasonality trends and data analytics, acronyms galore. I know that market forces or the will reveal that there is a future that narrows down to no one has jobs, or no one has meaningful jobs. Or I'm sorry, let me say it like this. The only things remaining should be meaningful. Those things that don't remain, if they are not meaningful, represent subjugation. Because if you've got AI that can do a job, but you instead choose to use a human, that if it's not competitive market forces, then it's the will. So I know us humans, we got this. So, and the big players are saying post-labor economics. They're saying new economic models. They're saying an AI in every pocket. Look, we got a little friend joining us right now. What's up, dude? He's gonna hang out. We're gonna do this together. So then the question is, and this is where suffering exists. This is where I was racking my brain. What is the moral question? I mean, I was on Facebook and I saw some lady was asking a question about a vibe coding application. And what was probably clearly an ex-developer was just trashing this poor girl, telling her how her idea is dumb and someone else is going to just do it anyway, so why would she try to sell it? Well, he's not wrong, but his attitude totally revealed to me that he is upset because his identity was taken. He's no longer useful. He's not necessary anymore because the agency to create software is now everybody's. We all have the potential. It's just the lack of the tools' inability at this point. They'll get better though, because it's possible and because market forces will make it get better. So what was the third part of this that sort of made me feel it? Because we're just sort of floating out here in the Neverlands. When? The question is when? When is this going to happen? 2027, 2028. We're just picking dates. We're just making stuff up. In the meantime, what happens to the people that have identity crises? They lose their jobs. And then they get depressed, etc., etc. Because they just don't know this third part right here. So I propose that the third part is time. In my mind, I said, it isn't and it ought not be when is a question mark. It ought to be because we know it's possible and we know market forces are going to inevitably go to this. What if we end work and we just pick a day? What if we pick, I don't know, we'll pick like August 2nd, 2032? What if we just, and I really just a random date, what if we just pick a day? That collectively we all work towards ending labor. Well, if you just had an identity crisis, you've been an accountant for 40 years, or a doctor, someone who screened cancer, or a lawyer for 20 years, or an intern, or my mom who works as a office administrator, maybe she won't get super depressed. Maybe she'll hold on for a day. And what if this was a national objective? And here's, but wait, there's more. So we know it's possible. So to alleviate suffering, we just pick a day. So this hit me, and then I became optimistic and happy again. Yay. So I say, let's go. So, to what end? When? I think this day. So how do we do it? Man, it's actually not that hard. It's actually not that hard at all to do this. When we start, imagine, and this is the crazy part. We spend our time, and this is an economic theory I have, is that we extract value from complexity. So the more complex something is, the more you needed to have people to explain, to do things. Financial markets, complicated. Investments, complicated. Legal matters, complicated. Healthcare matters, complicated. There's a lot of complexity that exists. How to finance a vehicle and not get ripped off, complicated. How to bake a chicken, 20 million answers on Google. And it's all complicated. Actually, what if the way that we decelerate labor is actually pretty simple? So this is how I do it, and so this is what I propose. Now, I say we do it with EndWork.ai, but if you want to get the head start, you go right ahead. I'll wait. Now, let's go. So how do we do it? Well, I don't know the actual numbers, but I'm just going to pick some random numbers, okay? So I'll get to this part next. I should have numbered this first, but I'm going to talk about human-computer interaction and information technology, okay? So it's some pretty cool reading on this. There's a lot of literature, academic papers about this, but I'll make it simple, okay? Our biggest currency and an entire economy is based off of information. Okay? We move information around using technology. Okay? So imagine, and I mean this like a gear, okay? So we use technology, computers, now, but before, maybe it was like a lantern or Morse code. We used technology which is an accelerant. We used technology to accelerate the distribution of information. Because you don't need to know everything at once. You just need to know what you need to know at a particular time. So technology has made it easy. We've been in the information age. It's like the words are here. Okay, so we use technology to move information around. The thing is, though, and this is accurate, is that now information, all information, accurate information, can be in your pocket. Because you can have a conversation with a Webster's dictionary and a thesaurus and history books of millions and millions of tokens that know everything and can even have a dialogue with you to help you ensure that you understand what it is you're reading. So the technology we have now reduces information to not the transmission of it. We don't need to use technology to jettison information around. There's an entire economy of jobs and there are entire markets that have been propped up with the sole responsibility of either directly or indirectly supporting the movement of information using technology. It used to be smoke signals and cave paintings. Now it's computers and headsets. Okay, so the way that we made this so much more efficient is the practice of human-computer interaction, because the technology we used was a computer, and then it was a mobile device, right? And so what we did was, professionals in my field, is we understood how humans interacted with computers. We know the button colors, we know the radiuses of the borders, we have opinions about motion design, we know how to elicit an emotional response to create a pleasant experience, we know how to create an experience that compels you to make a decision, whether good or bad. This has been called dark UX in the past. We know how to do things like make things difficult for you, to push you down paths. We know how to augment language in design. There's design theory, color theory, motion theory. The whole goal is to make the interaction between a human and a computer really pleasant, really convenient, really efficient. Okay? So imagine that if you have all of these employees with these specific roles on computers, and you have AI that now has really efficient cognitive train of thought, if the affordance, if the thing that work for most people now, most work is on a computer. So we mix and we optimize human-computer interaction. Actually, it's become so, let me say it better. Human-computer interaction has become so efficient, we've got really nice websites with big buttons and words, mobile devices with logos at the top, and maybe a button down here, and we've got big text and we've got little text, right? We've got all these applications, these SaaS applications that exist. If you say you're an accountant, you use QuickBooks or Quicken. If you're a lawyer, maybe you use some law library website. You interact with a computer. So this effectively becomes a zero-sum interaction. It no longer needs to be human-computer interaction anymore. So how do we do this? Well, we've been using training data, or these technology companies have been using training data that has been based off of a really bad internet. I mean, your how to bake chicken blogs, and all 50 million of them were really bad and full of advertisements to figure out at what temperature to cook it at and for how long to cook it at. But effectively, here's the best part right here. It's called the ONET. Let me actually get the name of this because I want to make sure it's right. It's the ONET, O asterisk, I'll write it here. There is the ONET database that exists, which is an open resource of 1,000 occupations. Now here's the good news. I heard this from someone one time. If you can enumerate something, you can number something, you can finish something. So there are only 1,000 jobs that exist. And this is computer jobs and not computer jobs. There's only 1,000 jobs that exist. Okay? So what if we got 500 accountants each to give us, say, 500 hours of screen recordings of them interacting on their device, just doing their job, maybe dictating and explaining what they're doing. For every job to train very specific models that become open source. So this is the humanitarian way that if we all sort of say, okay, we've got 1,000 jobs, I encourage accountants, I encourage strategists, consultants, smart people, people that have spent their life building businesses to work with me to help end businesses. Just wait. Now, you've got 1,000 jobs. How many of these jobs, maybe it's like 20% of these jobs were jobs that supported other jobs, So it's not even that we need to really technically do 1,000 jobs. We need to figure out, and we need to do a BPM, the world's largest BPM, of cognitive labor in the information technology landscape. It's not even difficult. You can do it that way. It would be clever, where you could just literally hardcore this thing and just pick a job. Find the most essential jobs, and like a pulling a pin out of a elaborate needle stack, the related jobs sort of at the same time they go away. And we do that because we'll train AI bots to do them for you. So 500 accountants, give me 500 hours each of you interacting on your interfaces, clicking on your buttons, reading your emails. We could upload your emails, and then we upload every textbook from every accounting resource. We upload every blog from everything. And then all of a sudden, if you get rid of business, then you really don't need accounting anymore. You'll realize that your entire job was just interacting on an interface. You had value, obviously, yes, but now, just like up here, I didn't need this person, or this person, or this task, or this task, or this task, if the client could prompt engineer a website for $19 now. They can. Figma did that. Figma, which was one of our design tools we used, we would spend $6,000 on a designer, $10,000 on a design for a very simple SaaS website that now can be prompt engineered using Tailwind in Figma by a client. How many designers felt alienated? Now that software allows you to just click a button and now publish a website. It's cool if you're a client who was about to spend $50K on a website, and now you can get it for hire a low-level consultant for 10 hours. But again, it isn't that it's not possible or that market forces won't inevitably make it happen. The issue with us not planning for a date is that it's an uneven deceleration. Dare I say the haves and the have-nots? Dare I say the unlucky that were not told that it could happen at a particular time if we planned on it together, that maybe they get really sad and depressed. And who knows what happens then? I don't know who's going to be culpable for this one. So, okay, but now I hear you saying, if I've gotten you past that it's not possible, and if I've gotten you to the point where, okay, wow, it's possible, what about my job? I got a mortgage to pay. I got a video for that. We have other solutions. Because it's going to happen eventually. It's going to happen. And it's possible. So let's just pick a time. This thing looks wrecked. I'm going to use a black pen now. Okay, so how much would this cost to do? I mean, 500 of any profession, times 500 hours each, times every job that existed. We could free all mankind of arbitrary required human-computer interaction, cognitive labor, for less than the cost of the F-35 fighter pilot program. That was $2 trillion. So we could free all mankind for less than a weapon of war. I mean, we could probably even do this for free. I mean, it's so easy and cheap. Maybe you just need to know how it happens and how it could happen. So what? Okay. So what? I think part of the problem with this is scarcity, a scarcity competitive mindset. The fact that I've known this for so long and I haven't told you makes me feel bad. Because I think even if you just know that this is coming, maybe you'll get rowdy and you'll call a politician. If you were a software engineer that just lost your job, you volunteer for literally the greatest initiative in mankind, to free mankind from the subjugation of the 40-hour work week, which, by the way, I've got books upon books, archive.org, and I'll link them in the repository, the book I picked up the other day was from 1925. It said that the way that technology was going, because at that time they were coming off of the Industrial Revolution and a very tremendous upset, that there would be no way that people would work more than 20 hours a week for 200 days a year. I worked 50, 60 hours a week, 6 days a week. You probably do too. And we don't need to get on like the purpose conversation will come. What is your purpose? I might do a part two to this video that's more philosophical, because I want this to just be practical. What's up, little dude? I'll save the philosophical video for next, just to say that we've been talking about this for a while. Okay, so what is, I dare you to purchase another domain, or I dare you to just do this yourself, or find a way to do this yourself. I dare you to just record your screen. Like when you go to work, when you go to your office, be a rebel and record your screen doing your job and dictate what you're doing. Maybe have your phone up and say, hey, okay, and just maybe even do like maybe do a Google Meet and record your screen and talk out loud what you're doing. And train. Let's use technology to train models on how to use your devices and your interactions using your mind. Like as you get an email, okay, I'm reading this email from Jonathan. I sent him a report. This report was about this. I'm going to now open this other software with this report, and I'm going to do this, this, and this. I mean, it's going to be kind of weird. But what if it was the last 500 hours you worked? And what if we all did it in an organized fashion? And we did it towards a goal together. Rather than, this is sort of the dark turn. So how you can help is, maybe you can go to the repository, you can go to the website, EndWork.ai. If you want to interview me, I'd love to have conversations with people about this. But I'm gonna show you maybe a bit of a dark turn, and then only to contrast the light. Man, that's a really bad infinity symbol. I'll try again. Okay. So I'm going to show you this. So this makes way more sense. Okay. So I was pretty upset about the identity that I lost. And you will be too. Especially if it's taken from you. You'll feel you'll feel robbed. Now, robbed if you didn't know it was possible. Now, what if you found out that this was all possible, and you didn't want to participate in this, and you don't have to, because you know, there's a couple billion people. 500 of someone will come out of the woodwork and help out with this. So it's sort of inevitable, which is exciting. But what if there was a company out there called Oppressive AI, which I have that domain too. It was a weird fall. So what if, did you know, at the company that I was at, I was lucky enough to grab all my emails. I had 80,000 emails that I sent in 5 years. If you worked at a company for like 10 years, 20 years, you probably sent a lot of emails. I sent 80,000 emails. I bet at your company, maybe you're a mid-size auditing firm, I bet you and your team has probably sent, a couple 100,000, maybe 1 million emails. You know that's all training data, right? That is your thought process in an inbox with a dialogue back and forth, minus the Giphies and the email signatures. So what if Oppressive AI was the greatest consulting firm ever? And what it did is it had maybe a slogan: relieve you, unburden you of your employees. Compete today. There's going to be some enterprising company out there that their promise is that we can convert your company to a zero employee company. I'm sure that company already exists. And all you would need to do, so if you'd like to also do this business, all you need to do is have maybe some promises like, we'll take your emails, we'll take your email database, we'll put in some other analytics, we'll have a custom built proprietary model, and we will replace you'll have a company that's just a board and a C-suite of people that just manage the AIs. And then you'll have people that manage the managers of the AIs. So it's sort of one way or the other. If we let the market do this, we let market forces do this, there's going to be a pop, there's going to be an acceleration. But wouldn't it be weird? And this is sort of like the last thing I'll mention about this is, wouldn't it be weird if we had the potential to do this, and instead of liberating people, instead of liberating all of us because we've got paper contracts and debt and addictions and habits, the only thing that remains, the only reason we have to work is because we have to pay bills, not because we needed to. That would be like slavery. That would be subjugation. That would be oppression. I think we work together. So EndWork.ai, I propose, is a movement, a nonprofit, open source, whatever. I don't know how to do this stuff. I'm just a human-computer interaction junkie. What if we all freed mankind from human-computer interaction, just put in a little bit of time? I think that'd be cool. What do you think, little dude? Bye, guys.